All right, hello, and welcome to another Incus live stream. So, this week I figured I'd be doing something that's been an annoyance to um, a lot of our users recently, and see if we can make this quite a bit easier. So the problem I'm referring to is actually related to the Incus Web UI, whether it's the one I'm showing here, which is the our rebranded version of the LexD UI, or if it's any other of the web interfaces you can find on GitHub that you're serving directly from Incus. So the way things work currently is you need, like, if you want to access this on a local machine, you can configure Incus to listen on the network, and you can install a web UI. And then from your web browser, you can hit up, localhost on whatever port, 8443 or something. At which point, a few things will happen. The first thing is you're gonna get a prompt because the certificate is not valid. So you're gonna need to work around that. And the next step would be to switch. Yeah, so the first step is the TLS certificate prompt. That's easy enough. You just say, okay, sure, I trust this thing, move on. The next step is going to be authentication. And for most people, that means you now need to generate a certificate key pair, load half of that into the web browser, load half of that into Incus, then reload the page, you get a weird prompt on the web browser, and then you can authenticate, and that works. It's quite annoying because it opens an extra port. You need to generate the certificate, you need to manage this stuff, you need to make sure the certificate doesn't, like, that you don't lose it. It's quite involved. It gets a lot better for it's a lot better if you're running like a production cluster like I am, because then I've got a proper load balancer in front. I've got valid certificates loaded on the cluster, and I'm using OpenID Connect for authentication, so there is no certificate or anything to deal with, and everything else is all nice and valid. Not everyone can do this. You definitely can't really do that for your laptop. So the idea is to effectively use a mechanism that already exists within the Incus CLI to run some kind of small proxy on the client machine. And the idea is effectively you would run Incus Web UI as a command that would then connect to the remote Incus through whatever transport is needed. So that could be localhost, well, that could be through the local Unix socket, or it could be over the network. And then it will listen, like this, the CLI tool itself will listen on a random port on the local machine. And you can access that over HTTP, no HTTPS, and it will just proxy everything to the target Incus server, and the CLI that does the proxying is the one that handles authentication for you, so you don't need to deal with that in the web browser. Now, there's some security concerns of doing that, obviously, because anyone who can access that web server can then have full access onto Incus. That's not good. So the idea I've got there is to generate a random username and password and use HTTP basic authentication on that proxy web server thing, so that you do need to authenticate with a username and password, but the URL that it will generate and show you would already pre-encode that, so that you don't really need to think about it. You can just open that URL in your web browser and it will just work. So anyway, that's the idea there. So that's a few changes needed to the CLI, and we'll go through that during the stream. There's been a question around, hey, is there a way to use dark mode on the UI? No, there isn't. Canonical did not implement that, and I'm not enough of a web developer to try and implement that as a patch on our side. So if that does show up somehow in the LexD UI, then once we rebase onto a newer version, we'll pick it up. But currently, nope, that's the only color scheme you get out of that. The good thing is that most of the stream will be spent in a terminal, so you won't have your eyes blasted by this for too long. All right. Speaking of terminal, let's go look at that. So the idea is, as I said, like I want to implement Incus Web UI, and that should effectively spawn a local web server and then give me the URL. And then when I click on that, it should just work. Like it should just connect, well, open over HTTP, let me talk to the local UI, no, like not dealing with authentication or TLS or anything. Obviously that command doesn't exist, so I need to actually add that. And as I mentioned, it actually is very similar to something else we already support. I believe it's Incus remote proxy is the command. Yeah, it is. So we've got that Incus remote proxy command that you normally have no reason to use by yourself. Actually, I can do some things like more fun and use a remote cluster. But it's used internally if you turn on keep alive on a given remote. So what it does is I can do remote proxy, the remote, and then give it a path. So in this case, I don't know, I can do tmp test.socket. Okay, and while this is running, oops, reset that. While this is running, I can now go and connect to that socket. So if I do say curl Unix socket, tmp socket, test.socket, and then Incus 1.0. And that just worked. So it effectively, in this case, proxies that remote server API onto a local Unix socket. And just to show that this is actually a cluster and not my local machine, we can see the clustered servers and everything in there. So it is fully proxying that, and in this case, onto a local Unix socket. We want something very similar here, but instead of proxying it to a local Unix socket, it should proxy it to a local HTTP listener, effectively on a local host address. So anyway, this is going to be the base for that new command, because it's going to be kind of the easiest there. But the first thing is we need to actually define a new command, which I've not done in a little while, actually. I think the most recent we've done is incus stop, so that might be a good starting point. So if we copy incus stop into incus web UI.go, there we go. Then remove all the stuff that is not relevant, which is going to be most of that file. Yeah, probably the rest of this file is not relevant. Okay, let's wipe that. Oops. Clean that up, and then fill in the rest. So this is not relevant, just want the global stuff. CMD top becomes CMD, oops, CMD top becomes CMD web UI. Okay, something like that. And then we can just fill in the rest. So this is web UI. Oh, actually, I forgot one standard line. Oops. Just like a kind of stock comment we need. I don't remember what we call it actually. So if I do func run in command incus, and I want the line prior to that. Git grep is slightly limited sometimes. There we go. That's the stock comment I was looking for. So let's just pick that up. It's basically to make our current static analysis tool happy. You might see that a bunch of comments don't have it set. It's because we have our static analysis configured to be a lot more picky on new code than it is on old code. So as we touch files, effectively it forces us to fix things. In this case, the missing godoc comments. So I'm just doing this one here. Right, web UI, short. Open the yeah, web interface. Yeah, we'll just do something like that. It's fine, because like technically I wanted to actually automatically open the web browser if possible. We've got that logic already in place for some other code path, so we should be able to reuse that. Okay, I think that might be it for the boilerplate stuff. This guy should probably actually just wipe it completely. Okay, and is that where all the commands are defined? Yes, it is. Okay, so it should just need to add the command definition here for the web UI. Oops. Okay. So web UI CMD, and web UI CMD. Okay. Let's see if that builds. Okay, it complains about a lot of imports that are not needed. That makes sense. We'll go and clean that up in a sec. Okay, so back onto the web UI file. And pretty much all of the imports are not needed. The Cobra import is needed, looks like, and that might actually be it. So let's try that. Maybe I missed something, but okay, yeah, we need CLI and I18N. Okay. Where are those again? Come on. Okay, so it's mostly the CLI, I never remember. Okay, it's these two guys we need. So let's copy paste those. Here we go. Okay. Alright, so that should build now. Yay. And it's gonna do basically nothing. And then command web UI. Okay, so I messed something up still. Let me see what I changed. What did I mess up? Okay, web UI CMD, add command web UI CMD. Okay, so that's, oh yeah, CMD warning. So that's wrong. Incus main. Oops. Modified the wrong one. So this is warning. This is web UI. All right, let's try that again. Yay, it does nothing, but that's kind of the point. Help is working. We need to support targets because you should be able to run that against a remote server. I'm not sure. I thought that top had that syntax supported. Actually, I'm pretty sure it does. So it's the help for top is probably wrong. And is the help for warning wrong too? Oh no, it's got subcommands. Okay. If I do list help. Okay, yeah, this one does have remote. Okay. So let's just do looking for the syntax, like a common help syntax basically. Okay, that, and then web UI can have that. I need to actually do the exact same for the top command because it's wrong too, so might as well fix that one. Here, I'm just gonna commit the fix for top. Incus top fix usage. Okay, there we go. So now if I make this stuff, the usage should be correct now. It is, good. All right, the rest of the logic, we're gonna go and steal it from the remote command because that's where that proxy command I showed earlier should be defined. Okay, if not on Windows. Okay, so it's gonna be specifically here, I think, because it proxies to a Unix socket, so that's not gonna work on Windows. But the new command that's gonna proxy to a local port, that should be fine actually. Okay. There's a bunch of logic in here for that stuff. I wonder how much of it I can just steal. Probably most of it. So let's just copy the entire run function for now and just take it from there. So that's the run function here. Okay. And let's go put that in the Web UI code. Okay, here we go, and import that. All right. So quick checks that needs to change. It's minimum 0 argument, maximum 1. I think that's what we want. Then yeah, the remote name, that's not how we actually handle that. Let me go look at the warning one again, because that should be close enough to what I want. Try pass remote. Yeah, we're just gonna do this syntax instead. Okay. So we'll just pick up this chunk. And yeah, software development is like 90% copy paste. In this case, I just am copy pasting from my own thing. Yeah, the proxy feature, I'm the one who implemented that when I did the keep alive stuff in Incus, I don't know, some number of months ago. Jared is asking like, did I originally implement the proxy? So yeah, I did that. I forgot most of it by now, so that's why I'm kind of rediscovering that code. But yeah, we actually have similar code in a couple of places, I think. Because we do it both, like we've got the tiny built-in proxy for the keep alive mode, and we've got another proxy like on the server side that we use when you use the unprivileged Incus interaction. So when you're part of the Incus group instead of just Incus admin. Like in both cases, we end up doing kind of internal proxying stuff. So it's pretty similar logic. Okay, so the first check here validates the number of arguments. That's fine. The second one picks up the remote name, or the remote definition, and we pass this stuff to get the remote name. We ignore any of the object name because there shouldn't be any. And then we connect to the remote server, so at which point we'll have a functional remote server here. So what were we doing in that logic? So in this one, we were doing something kind of similar. Detect remote name, figure out if keep alive or whatnot, parse things. Okay. And then here, S becomes the server, which in our case is remote server. So we already have all of that basically. Can get rid of it. And if we just call this guy S, then the rest of the logic should pretty much line up. Okay. Now that's the part that's gonna have to change. The create proxy socket. That's obviously not what we want. We need to create a localhost socket instead. And I know, I mean, on Linux, there's a convenient thing where you can bind, I think on port 0, and that gets you a random unallocated port. So I would like to use that if possible. TCP. I'm just checking if anyone has done that before. Yeah, we can do net listen on port 0 and that should work. Okay, cool. All right, so let's try doing that. So instead of, actually we can go straight to listen, I think. So server, instead of listen Unix, we want listen, just listen, I think. Yeah, protocol is TCP. And then the address ends up being, let's just do loopback, so 27001 on port 0. That should do what we want. Enable to set up TCP socket. Obviously, no need to chum out anything. And then the rest might actually work. Does it build? Does not build. Okay, missing a bunch of imports, that's fine. Net, format, URL, HTTP, sync, sure. So let's go. Net, there was format before it. I think there was URL. And probably HTTP as well. And sync, that's what I remember anyways. Time and OS as well. Okay, time OS. Okay, so that's just complaining about the timeout, so that's fine. there's no need. So in the normal proxy, it automatically exits after a given timeout. We obviously don't have that here. In this case here, we're gonna want to just tell the user to control C once they're done using the thing. So we can just remove that logic. Okay, and now we get to stop importing these two guys. Okay. All right, so that's working fine. Just before we do serve, we should probably tell the user print the address. I'm starting to think this thing is going to be significantly easier than what I thought it would be, and it might be so easy it's going to be pretty ridiculous that I didn't implement that before. But anyways, please connect, actually I want to web server running at address, so we want that, and then actually what's a web server running at? Yeah, so that's fine, and then we need the actual address. Which I think is server.local address. That should give us what we want, maybe. Okay, and this is printf. This is translation string. So we just want to put a non-translated line break afterwards. No, listener doesn't have local address because there's a remote address one, which should be the client address in this case, not the server, but who knows? Does it have remote address? No, it does not. Okay, I'm just gonna look up the documentation again real quick. So we're dealing with a net listener. Okay, what do we have on a net listener? Okay, listener. Actually, I can probably show that one here. Sorry again, this is still not dark mode. I'm not actually a dark mode user much other than for a few select piece of software because it's usually kind of too dark. I like the bluish dark mode, but not anything more than that. Okay, so .other.string should do what we want. Oh, other is a function too. Okay, fine. Okay. So Incus Web UI. Well, if that works, that's been way too easy. So let's open link. Crap, it's actually working. Okay. Let me actually have it show the web UI now, and then we'll do the auto open. But let me just show you what happened. So in this case, that's running up against my local desktop here. But yeah, this, if I open this and I'll show you what's that opened. Oh, it's like, there we go. It just worked. So that picked a random port. It's doing HTTP on it. It's on localhost, and it gets you into the web UI, and you don't need to even have configured Incus to listen on the network or anything. It basically just works. So that was pretty easy. Let's try something complex like accessing a Spice web console thing. Okay, this one fails. That might be a UI bug. It's quite possible that the UI just hard codes WSS, so the HTTPS connection. Let's see, because it's getting, yeah, bingo. The web UI assumes it's running on HTTPS. Okay, so that's gonna need a fix to the web UI to check whether it's on HTTPS or not, and then change the protocol for WebSocket from WSS to WS if it's running on HTTP. But it's an easy fix in the web UI, so we'll just have to do that. Okay, so that was nice and easy. Now, obviously, the part that's not done yet, that's gonna probably keep this stream going for at least a few more minutes because that was way too quick, is adding some amount of security on there. Because right now, any user on my system that can figure out that this port is open gets full access to Incus. Like, no question asked, it can do whatever the hell it wants, which is kind of problematic. One thing I wanted to show, which is kind of funny probably, is so again, this is like my local on my local desktop here, and in theory we've got remote support. So if since I can access, say, my laptop, I should be able to do that. Which in this case is currently prompting me to authenticate, like at the CLI level to my laptop. So I just need to fix that. Actually, I should be able to show you that in a different way. So first thing is I would want to be able to just, this is not my laptop, that's why. Okay, good. All right, so here I can list what's running on my laptop, that's fine. And now if I do Web UI against it, that should again bind a random port on my machine. And if I go look at this, now we can see this is listing my laptop stuff and no longer my desktop stuff. So the connection to remotes and everything, that works perfectly as expected. So that's great. Right, so now to implement basic authentication, it should be basic auth in Go. I've never done it before because we've always done fancy TLS or OpenID Connect or that kind of stuff. It can't be too difficult. So let me just check. What's like some examples of how to do this stuff? Because basically the idea is that it should generate a I think we will probably want to do it with a UUID. Let me check if we do any UUID stuff currently in the CLI. We do not. Okay. But we do a bunch elsewhere. Yeah. UUID.new.string is the magic function. So what I would want to do is effectively here in run, probably, I don't know, keep alive, gets info, and then bound. Yeah, probably around here, just do like generate credentials, and we want to create user and create password. Okay, so we're just generating two UUIDs, one for the username, one for the password. I need to actually import the UUID package for that. There we go. And then we should be able to just encode that in the URL directly. So username, password, and it becomes create user, create password, this basically. So, all right, so if I do Web UI now, there we go. So we've got the username and password encoded in the URL that the browser should send to the target. Now, obviously we need to actually validate that stuff. So that's the part that's currently missing. I think right now, if I was to use that, it would probably work. But there's just no server-side validation whatsoever for any of that stuff. Interesting. It's actually causing issues. Most likely because of OpenID Connect. So that's interesting. So it's actually being sent all the way to the server and causing problems. Probably because when you do that, so let's try and do it with curl to see what it does exactly. So if we go and hit that up with curl, did I change? Yeah, I restarted it, right? And the port and everything changed. So let's do it again with the current one. So copy link address, paste that, go. Okay. Here we go. We see authorization basic and then that chunk of base 64 here. And I guess this is the username and password, just base64 encoded. Yep, exactly. Username, current password, base64 encoded. Okay. So we need to add that validation, and then we need to strip the authorization header so we don't proxy it over to the target server. Otherwise, things are gonna get pretty confused. Yes. So there's a question saying like, isn't that being sent in clear text? Yes, it is, but it's sent in clear text to our own server running on localhost. So the only user that could intercept that on the machine and actually go and read that those clear text values would be the root user. And if you're root on the machine, you can already do whatever you want. So it doesn't really matter. You could already trace the CLI tool, get the credentials that way. You can do many different things to get that information. So it doesn't matter. My real concern with security, because like it's literally, we're looking at doing security on localhost, so it doesn't really matter. The only risk on localhost is I don't want someone's random script or another user on the machine to be able to take over Incus. That would be bad. Root being able to do it, it can do it anyways. All right, so we need to actually validate that stuff now. I'm sure there must be some nice helpers to do it, so I don't need to do things myself, hopefully. I mean, it wouldn't be difficult to do it. It's as like I basically just did it on the CLI. But it would be nice if there was a helper for this. I'm just looking at some Stack Overflow stuff real quick, but so authorization header. Okay, there's a bunch of examples of how to add it, which is fine. I would like to validate it instead. Otherwise, I'm gonna just do it myself, but it feels like there should be something. That's an example of a server. It's protected by basic auth. Basic auth does. Okay, so it looks like on a request there would be a basic auth function. Let me check net request. Yeah. HTTP. So I'm looking at the documentation for HTTP request. It would be nice if it does. Yeah, it does. Okay, there's a basic auth thing we can just call on it. We can literally, it will tell us if there's a header and what the value is. Cool. Nice and easy then. Let's go back to the code. So I think we've got a handler we define on there. And yeah, we use that remote proxy handler. Okay, there we go. Now, the problem with that is that it's shared with the other proxy stuff. I don't really want to re-implement that code either. So we're gonna have to extend the proxy and just be like, hey, this is the username and password we expect. If neither of them are set, then we don't do username and password checking. So I'm just trying to figure out which one. I'm gonna need to go look at the remote Unix code again. Okay. So that's the code for the existing proxy we had. And if I go look in there, we should have the actual handler somewhere. There we go. So here is the round trip function, which gets the request. Now it's on the remote proxy transport struct. So that's the struct where I need to expand a bit. And I think that's basically that, right? So server GTP. Okay. I'm just trying to figure out which one of the two functions I need to modify again. Because we do some amount of cleverness, like clever logic within the current proxy where we do cache the most common endpoints to make them faster. So that's one of those, like 1.0 is fully cached, for example. And then the rest is being proxied. So I think this is probably the right function to do it. Because the round trip would be called afterwards, I believe. So let's do it in server HTTP. So we'll just do basic auth and if h dot of user of password. Okay. So if those are set, then we want rec user, rec password, okay, from the request. So it's r.basic auth is what I was looking at in the doc. And then if not okay, or rec user is not equal to h of user, or rec password is not equals to of password. And we need to actually add those two here. So of user, is that the name? Yeah, of user string, of password string. Okay. So if they're not good, then we need to return, like actually return an error. So return will stop the request processing. We kind of want to do the right header. And which one is it again in that case? Because we need to tell it to do authentication. So let me just look that up again. I don't remember my HTTP codes by heart. It's 4.1 or 4.2. I don't remember. 4.1, yeah, 4.1 is unauthorized. 4.3 is forbidden. Yeah, so 4.1 is the right one. So it's status unauthorized. Does that still build? Yeah, it does. Cool. All right, so in theory, that's now expanded to support your username and password being set. But obviously, it's not active yet. I've not actually filled it. So if I run the proxy and I access something through it, so if I take that URL, dump it here, I didn't take the whole thing. Great. Okay, cluster members. Oops. 1.0 instances, let's do that. Yeah, so that still works. I mean, that works with authentication, but if I do the same thing without, it still works. So that makes sense. We've not actually done the plumbing yet. Now remote, which one of the two did I put this extra stuff on? The name so similarly, proxy handler is the one. Okay, so it's this guy. So here, if I do of user of password, and we set them to the variable of the same name. Oops, no, actually, no, it's cred user, cred password we used. Okay, fine. Okay, rebuild. That might actually just work. Let's see. Okay, so now it's running again. It's on port 35541, and that fails. Good. And it failed with 401 unauthorized. Cool. That's exactly what we wanted to see. And now if I go and copy paste the authentication part of this URL, now it works. Excellent. Let's just make sure that the web browser does the right thing. It didn't load for some reason, so that's not a good sign. Oh yeah, okay, I know why. Okay, so this worked, but we still have the issue of it actually getting carried onto the target server. So we don't want that. We don't want that that username and password to be exposed to Incus itself, or that might cause us other problems. So we need to go and strip it, which would be in here. And that's where we already do a bunch of weirdness. So this one is the user request as was received. So I think we should mangle it here probably, rather than do it later. Yeah, I think so. Okay. Because the request effectively gets taken and turned into another request effectively. Just trying to figure out how that stuff works again. Okay. Anyways, what we want is to strip that header in here, which is r.headers, I think. But I don't remember what the function is to actually mangle them afterwards. So once we do I thought it was headers, isn't it? Or is it just a struct that's part of it? I'm looking at the Go docs on the side. Okay, it's header with no s, and it's not a function. And then on there we can do del and then the key. So it's authorization that needs to go away. And okay, that should be it. So if we just do that. Okay. So let me just test that with curl again. So if I do this and I do 1.0 instances, jump. Yeah, we got a valid response. Cool. So that worked. And now is the web UI happy? No, the web browser still does not like this. This is kind of weird actually. I wonder why. Like it should be happy with it. I wonder if it's some caching thing maybe, or what's going on. Oh, it's like the web browser doesn't actually carry the username and password somehow. I'm just gonna test that. So let me show you. Again, sorry, that's off widescreen. So network debugger, we've got the URL here with the username and password in it. And when we do, we get 4.1 on both of them. And when we look at it, it didn't get, it wasn't sent to credential. So this is kind of confusing. Also, it's sending 4.1 unauthorized, but then the web browser didn't prompt for basic auth. So there's something missing. Well, it's not really, so there's a mention of like, okay, it's a front-end issue. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like the web browser is supposed to be getting the headers, telling it to prompt the user, at which point it sends it through a header, and that's not happening right now. Just checking. Yeah, okay, that's it. I forgot. There's another header we need to put to prompt to cause the web browser to actually prompt the user and do the right thing. So, so when we return unauthorized, which is here, we need to also do another header, which is CW authenticate basic realm restricted. So that we just do the prompt saying effectively restricted to the user and asking them to do basic auth. So if I put that in place, now that should trick the web browser into doing the right thing. The weird thing is that it didn't send the username and password that were encoded directly in the URL. So that's kind of weird. Like curl just did it. The web browser, not so much. But this looks better. Let me just check what's going on. Yeah, okay, so that worked now. Okay. So let's copy that URL and see if I go in here. It does something kind of odd. Let me just stop everything in here. And I paste the full URL again. It kind of stops. Doesn't fail anything, it just stops, which is kind of bizarre. Oh, actually, there's something here going on. OIDC, whatever. Okay, so there might be some weirdness going on because of OpenID Connect in my case. Now, what I notice is that if I do a force refresh, then it's fine. So there's just, other than the WSS stuff that we already mentioned, so that works fine. I'm just not sure why it doesn't work initially, but in the initial case, I'm getting some weird errors in the JavaScript console. Like in this case, it's clean. There's no more error. But on the initial connect, I think. No, it's not even on the initial connect that this fails. That's bizarre. Yeah, force refresh fixes it. Okay, let me just try Chrome because that might very well just be Firefox being weird. No, Chrome does the exact same thing. Huh. Project not found default. Yeah. Does it do the same thing though, where if I just do a force refresh then it works? Nope. That seems to be a Firefox thing. Okay, so now that I've got the prompt logic in place, what happens if I just... This is weird. I think Firefox and Chrome actually both mishandle the case where you provide the username and password through the URL directly for some reason. So let's see. If I just take that URL and go in here and I remove them from the URL completely, does that get me a prompt? It does, okay. And if during that prompt I provide the same credentials that were encoded into the URL, does that work? If it does, it's gonna be really weird. Oops, and this one. Come on, this is the correct stuff. Did I really? Oh, I copy pasted the wrong one. Whoops, my bad. Copy. Okay. And copy. Yeah, that just works. So yeah, this might be a bug in the web browsers, and let's just look it up or see if they want it encoded in some other way. If you have it like pre-filled in a link, like it's kind of bizarre. Oh, it might. There's one more thing I wanted to try actually. What happens if I pass that as the URL to command line invocation of the web browser? Nope, same issue. Okay. That would have been nice if it had just worked, but no. Okay. What's odd is that normally during that call, the backend should automatically redirect me, and it's not. Anyway, that's a small glitch. Like I'll just find a way to handle that slightly better. or worst case scenario, will generate a simpler username and password and provide URL username passwords to the user so that they can just enter those. But that's not ideal. But anyways, the rest works great, actually. That ends up being a lot easier than I expected. I'll just put it in place the logic to automatically open the web browser for us. Yeah, as I mentioned, like this might be a caching issue. That's why I tried in Chrome after trying Firefox. Also did try incognito, and I don't think it's gonna be a caching issue because, as you might notice, since I use a random port, technically all of the target URLs have been different. So the cache should not have triggered because of that. But it could still be something weird going on. Well, I mean the question of like login page. I mean, yes, that's what you get if you don't pass the credentials on in the link. That's what you get. You get the prompt for username and password by the web browser, and that works fine. Just a bit tedious having to pass up, not curl. Firefox. And it's not running anymore. Okay. So if I just do Firefox on localhost and I do it on 399.919, this gets me this prompt. So you do get the username password prompt, and if you copy paste the two stuff in, it will work fine. I just don't want that to. I don't want that to happen every time, because like this is always gonna be the URL will always be random every time. It's a different port you're gonna get, and the username and password for security reasons will be different every time. So you don't really want to prompt the user constantly. So that's why if we can just like auto open the URL that already includes username, password, and everything in one shot, that's a much better user experience without compromising on security. But yeah, the alternative would be to effectively give like auto open the URL and provide the username and password, and then the user has to copy paste both, which is not great. It's a question of like whether you can set your own username, password, and port. Probably not. Like it's easy for us to do it. It's just it's gonna lead to people messing it up, and then systems getting compromised. And when that happens, then we're gonna be like it's gonna be very difficult to figure out what happened exactly that led to that situation, and that makes for pretty bad headlines. So no, we usually tend to prefer for things to be safe and not make them easy to work around. All right, so I just wanted to still do the auto open of the web browser. We do have a function here apparently. Yeah, I'll try and figure out the root cause of this stuff. Like it's kind of weird. I'm also not sure why we're not getting the redirection. So there's another bug on the server side, I think, or potentially in the proxy code. Because my hope was that by sending the user on / which then redirects to /UI, it might unblock whatever the weirdness is that's going on in the web browser. But I think, actually, I think I know where that logic is. So there's a bit of caching logic here. Let's just do this. So only use the cache if there's no credentials. At which point we should be able to open /, which should then redirect to the UI path. Let me see. No, it still doesn't. Why doesn't it do the redirection it's supposed to be doing? It's bizarre. Okay, so there's still another bug, because that should have led to a different behavior. So anyways, I'll sort that one out afterwards. That shouldn't be too hard. Just like the Firefox thing, like we can't possibly be the only ones who want to encode username and password in the URL and have it work with Firefox out of the box. So there must be a bug open somewhere or an explanation as to what it's expecting to have this work properly. There are a bunch of other workarounds we can do. Like we could do like a unique URL that has everything base64 encoded, and then the proxy redirects to the actual URL or something, or uses a cookie or something. There are a bunch of other tricks we can do. It's fine. We'll figure something out that will work. This would just have been the that would have been the easiest way to do it by a long shot. So I was hoping it would just work. What was the client code now? Client util. And the function is open browser. Okay, it's unfortunately not exported. And it doesn't really make too much sense to export it, to be honest. Don't we have anything browser related in the CLI already? No, we don't. Okay. What do we have in shared these days? Yeah, okay. We can dump it in there probably. Shared util browser.go. The cat is here. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Jared can be happy seeing the cat. Probably not the only one who wants to see the cat, but he just walked into my office, so here he is. Probably wants some food or something, but okay. I'm just gonna be lifting. I want to see what the cat does, if it sticks around or what. It's trying to go through my trash. Lovely. Thinks it's a raccoon sometimes, I swear. Let me look up open browser and just move that over to shared util browser. Package is util. And we'll just export that. Okay, so just do something like this. I'm gonna need a bunch of imports. Yeah, the problem with the plant and the cat is that the cat is gonna try and eat the plant. Usually he does that when he's hungry and feels like mistreated or something. Even though he's got plenty of food downstairs, he can just go and eat. But anyways. Yes, that means I need to wrap up that live stream soon, otherwise it's just gonna try and destroy everything in sight. OS in runtime. Yeah, the plant does grow back, that's true. The problem is that it's got a bit of a tendency to go and vomit everywhere after he eats plants, which is not too enjoyable. But also, he literally does it just out of spite. Like, he only starts eating plants when, like, he wants treats or food or something, and we're ignoring him. He will never go and do it on his own when we're not around, so... I'm just porting the existing code to use the shared function now. Okay, this one does not already import shared util apparently. No, it does not. Okay. Okay, that should fix the existing code to use the new shared function. And then just need to call it from the new web UI. Just checking where the cat went now. Huh. Not sure where he is actually. All right. I can hear that he's still in the room. I just don't know where he is. Okay, so the logic here should be basically the same as we've done here. So basically just making that call. So print address, attempt to automatically open the browser. And then we do this. And okay. Obviously, it's gonna have the exact same issue that I had copy pasting it, but that's gonna be a separate problem. Okay, so it's that, and then we just pass UI URL instead of this. Okay, and pass it to that thing, and then import the right package. And that should be that. So if I do Web UI, yeah, it immediately opens into my web browser, which then promptly hangs, but you know, if I retry it with force reload, then it works fine. So I just need to figure out that weird Firefox behavior where like it opens, hangs, you do a force reload of the page, it works. Because that's not the best user experience, but it's still pretty close to perfect, basically. I think that's it. So that's gonna be kind of that's the goal for the user experience, to effectively just you run Incus Web UI and it immediately starts it up for you. One more check I might do is a question of normal refresh works. I don't know. Let's see. So it might actually work. I just have a tendency to do force refreshes for everything. Yep, simple refresh worked fine too. So yeah, it's really weird. It feels like a web browser issue of some kind. Like if it was a cache thing, force refresh might explain it, but like simple refresh just fixing it, it's pretty odd. Yeah, just had a refresh go to the loading page. That's kind of what I had in mind with having it not load /UI, but having it load /, because normally our target server should detect the web browser and then redirect you to /UI. In which case you would have a redirect, so whatever, it would be probably fine. So I might still try and just make that work, because that might just fix it for us. The other thing I wanted to maybe do is have the CLI check if there is an index page on /UI. So basically just like hitting up /UI and making sure we don't get a 404. So that if the target server doesn't support the UI, if it's not installed, we can return a client-side error instead of opening the web browser and then the user getting a 404 or something confusing in the web browser. That should be a pretty easy thing for me to add to the CLI, to just have it do that automatically for us. And yeah, that should make it a lot easier for a lot of people to try the UI. You don't need to deal with like all of the authentication stuff or with TLS or with any of that. You don't even need to have Incus itself listen to the network at all. Like you can keep your local Incus running just on the Unix socket as it does by default, and then that command will still work fine. So that should be very convenient for a bunch of people to have. And I think that's going to be it for this week. Thanks a lot for watching, for all the questions, for all the interactions. That's always very much appreciated. And I think next week I'll probably be back to Incus OS stuff. I've got a bunch of things to do on that. But this is just like something I was thinking of yesterday. Basically thinking like, hey, we have like 99% of the logic already. It might be very easy to do the plumbing that's needed to get this in place and provide something that's safe for everyone out of the box. And yeah, significantly, well, make it significantly easier for anyone who's not already set up with proper HTTPS, with Keycloak or another OpenID provider and all that kind of stuff. So thanks a lot for this, for watching. And if you've got any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. You can go on the community forum as usual. And I'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.